Hey everybody, and welcome to Don't Copy That Floppy, your weekly video game news podcast, broadcasting live Fridays 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on twitch.tv/DCTF podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Lex, and I'm joined by my other host.
Booge.
Yep, that's his name. Definitely his real Christian name. And
That's what everyone calls me anyways.
we are going to be talking about a whole bushel of video game industry news this week, including stuff about NBA 2K18, an update to Middle-earth Shadow of War DLC stuff, several stories about Valve, a story about Ubisoft, stories about Atlas and emulators, once again, another story about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and
As long as I'm alive, there will be stories about PUBG.
And then we're going to get to a trailer that dropped this week that's a real big deal. And we're going to end the show with a little bit of talk about video games that have just come out and video games that are about to come out, including Star Fox 2, out for the first time today.
Ever. No one's ever played it.
Nobody. Certainly not me.
Nope. Me neither. By the way, it's pronounced Ubisoft.
I don't think so.
Lex, damn it.
I think you're wrong.
Show's over. It's ubiquitous software.
Is that really what it's supposed to be short for?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yep.
So,
do you know what Sega is short for?
No.
Service games.
Really? That's awful.
Because they used to only make like arcade cabinets and stuff.
Oh no. Oh. That's
Sega.
You ruined everything. I really wish you hadn't told me that one. Ugh. So speaking of things that are disgusting and wrong, let's talk about NBA 2K18.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say let's talk about basketball.
Oh no, I love basketball. That's always the sport I wish was America's pastime, because like everyone says that it's baseball, but it's really football. Let's be fair.
It's really football. I think basketball is pretty high up there.
But yeah, I always wished that it was really basketball, because I think that's the best of them. But a game came out called NBA 2K18. Shocker. One of those comes out every year.
Yeah.
And this year, people were a little upset about this one because, as you can see from the title of this story from Kotaku from the 19th, this version is riddled with microtransactions.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hooray! Basically, 2K18 has virtual currency. The best part is they don't even name it something fancy. They just call it VC, virtual currency.
I was thinking that too. I'm like, you couldn't have like hoop bucks or something? Like,
oh, it should have been called hoop bucks.
Hoop dollars.
That would have been great. So this is an issue because this is a AAA title, a $60 game. And we've been seeing in a lot of AAA titles things like loot boxes in Overwatch, or like mountains of DLC and things like Shadow of War, or loot boxes and things like Shadow of War.
Or loot boxes in every game.
In every game. Now, this game doesn't have loot boxes, at least I don't think it does, but it does have a billion different microtransactions for literally everything in the game. So your character has stats that you can level up through playing, or rather you play, and then when you play you are awarded virtual currency, and you can use that currency to buy stat upgrades.
Yeah.
Apparently you start with, I think it's 6,000 virtual currency, which you might think, oh, that's great. That's probably enough to do all sorts of stuff, but it's not. You'd be wrong and stupid. Because actually, it's only enough to get your character from rank 60 to rank 62.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why you start at 60.
Do you?
I guess because they're talking about doing this as soon as you start the game with the virtual currency that you get.
That's true. That's true.
I don't understand why you start it, but that probably has to do with basketball rankings, which are something I don't understand. So it probably makes sense to people who understand basketball. Anyway, you only gain 2 rankings out of, I don't know what your max is, but 2 rankings still doesn't seem like much. Seems like a drop in the bucket there. And if you want to upgrade anything else, you need to either grind away at the game a lot or open up your wallet and buy some VC.
Got to get that skill, sweet hoop bucks.
Sweet hoop dollars.
Hoop dollars. A couple things. First of all, I love that the person that wrote this, Geeta Jackson, named her character Xavier World Peace.
Yes, that was great.
That's a wonderful name. Secondly, yeah, this, I mean, it looks like all the things that she's talking about in this, or I assume it's her, talking about in this article, make it seem like a fucking iPhone game or something with all this, like, oh yeah, you can play it, but you got to buy everything. Except it's a $60 game, like you said. And she basically goes on to say that essentially you need to buy, like, you can get 75,000 hoop dollars for 20 real dollars. And that's, you know, and that's bullshit basically, because now you're spending, $80 on a basketball game, so that you can change your hairstyle and your poses and your animation.
Well, here you're not just spending $80 because, as we know, 6,000 hoop bucks only gets you 2 ranks. And let's assume, I don't know what the max. Again, I'm not sure what the max rank is, but let's assume it's like 100 or something. So if you spend $20, you're gaining another 2 ranks.
Mm-hmm.
So still a drop in the bucket there.
Right.
You'd have to spend a massive amount of money on this game to level your character up in a significant way. And again, yeah, you can play the game to unlock all this currency, but from the reporting in this article and from the reporting in other articles I've read, it is just a grueling undertaking. Like, it takes so long to get the points, and it's hard to progress in the game because you need to be able to level up your character to, like, beat harder challenges in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, later in the article she mentions that to reach an overall rating of 86, maybe that's the
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I totally missed that. That's my bad.
I don't know. And not spend any money, you'd have to play over 200 games. Some people found out on the internet after doing some math. And yeah, 2K hasn't responded. Unsurprisingly. This is just another tale of this stuff. I mean, this shit just constantly grows and grows. Luckily, good on Geeta Jackson and people like Jim Sterling and people that are kind of more for consumer rights and stuff in video games, like making this stuff known so that it has like a public, it has a presence, is what I'm trying to say, so that people know that this shit's happening. Because if you let them get away with this, they're just going to keep running with this, and the next one's going to be worse, and the next one's going to be worse.
A lot of people have pointed at the things like the microtransaction difference between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, which we talked about on a past episode, as just the publishers thinking, hey, how far can we push this? We'll just push it a little farther and a little farther. And 2K18 seems like the next large step in that direction.
Right. Yeah, and if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, So if you're a basketball game fan, if you like, and because they mentioned that they've been doing this microtransaction stuff since like 2012 or something, so it's nothing new. And I honestly I think that I don't have too much of a problem with microtransaction stuff as long as it is aesthetic only. Like, I don't have much of a problem with that, because if people are willing to spend money for different tattoos on their characters, that's fine. It doesn't affect the way the game plays. But when you start interfering with like the actual game mechanics with real money, that's when I start having a problem.
Yeah, and obviously this is different when you're talking about a single-player experience versus a competitive multiplayer experience. Mm-hmm. And this is a single-player one in this case, but even so, I mean, it's not okay to the consumer to be doing this. Or if you're going to do this, make it like an iPhone game and make the game free, and then just be full of microtransactions, because those people are going to spend that money, and the publisher's going to make the $60 probably anyway, and people will be more interested in spending the $60 because the game was free.
Right. Totally.
So this is a sad direction. I'm glad that journalists and people online are putting pressure on this and putting a spotlight on it. And I think that's important. Yeah. But I think the only thing that's really going to matter is how well the regular units of the game sells, which is probably going to be fantastically well because it's an NBA 2K game. And probably. 2, how well or how much money they make off of these microtransactions. If people aren't biting for these, then, you know, that they probably will dial it back because they realize there isn't money to be made there.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that people are going to be like, ah, well, I mean, I got the money, sure, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And
I mean, with video games, the pretty much the only thing that you can do to change a direction of a publisher is to vote with your wallet.
Yep.
Like that's it. That's the only thing that they will actually listen to. No one buys the microtransaction shit. They're gonna not be that much microtransaction shit in NBA 2K19. You know, like you said, yeah, you just got to vote with your wallet with this shit and stay on top of it. Don't give them too much leverage, or this shit can easily run rampant very fast.
Definitely. So, speaking of DLC, things you have to
bullshit running rampant real fast.
Yeah. You've heard of Shadow of War, right?
No, never have.
All right. So as we said earlier in the show, that's going to have loot boxes, but that's not what this story is about. This is an update to a story we did a couple weeks ago about how Middle-earth Shadow of War was going to have Forthog Orc Slayer DLC. Mm-hmm. And that was a DLC that featured a character modeled after one of their producers on the game who passed away due to cancer. And it was going to be, I don't remember how much it was going to be, like $3 to $5 or something.
It was something like that.
And they had said, oh, the proceeds are all going to go to cancer charities.
And the family of the man that died.
Well, initially they were going to go cancer charities, and then journalists found out that there were certain states and any place outside of the U.S. were not guaranteed to have those funds go to cancer charities the way the transactional laws work.
Mm-hmm.
So then they put out a statement, Warner Brothers put out a statement saying, hey, or is Warner Brothers, right? Am I mixing up my companies? Is this Activision?
Yeah, it's Warner Brothers.
Okay. So Warner Brothers put out a statement saying, oh, no, I mean, the places that would be non-U.S. territories and those other states, that money's actually going to go to his family. And I thought that was actually a great compromise and a great way to save face on that situation and sort of turn it around in their favor. And then,
absolutely.
Yeah, and then we found out on the 27th of September that they are just deciding to make the downloadable content free.
Right.
Which
they probably should have done from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I actually am kind of don't like this move at this point because I like the idea of that money going to a good cause.
Sure.
Instead of just into Warner Brothers' pockets, which is where the money for all the other DLC is going.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, oh, yeah, no, this one DLC that was going to go to charity, but instead you can just have it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's better. I think that's worse. I think it's worse because now the people who need the money are not going to get it.
Well, so WB Interactive Entertainment did say that they would shell out their own money for a donation to You Caring charity set up by 4G's family, the guy that died.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, who knows if they'll... I mean, they don't have to... I don't think they have to claim... Or they don't have to state how much money they give in a charity. So, how much they give, if they give, I guess we'll never know. But they are saying that they're going to do that.
Yeah, so that's my worry that, like, the whatever money this DLC was going to make was going to be, X amount of dollars. And they're only going to give a percentage of what that would have been to the actual charity. Which sort of bums me out.
It does. I also see this as probably like they probably were sick of this bullshit, and also like I feel bad for the family that may or may not have been hearing about all this controversy,
Yeah, so they decided the best way to deal with it is to just sort of drop everything.
Yeah. So in that case, I'm glad they made the move for the family. They're just like, it's free. It's fuck it. Just like forget about it. We're trying to do a thing. And I like if there was some skeezy shit going on behind this or not, I would feel bad for the people that thought this up in the first place. Like I'm sure that it came from a place of well-meaning from somebody in WB. And then it just turned into a snowball and they're just like, fuck it all. Fuck it. It's free. Whatever. Like this is all this shit's blown up in our face.
We don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how that resolved. Just that quick update. But
the story's over. We don't have to talk about that game ever again.
Oh yeah, we'll never need to talk about Shadow of War ever again.
Nope.
No, knowing Shadow of War, there will be a new controversy probably before it launches, but definitely as soon as it launches.
Yes, definitely.
Knowing Warner Brothers, it'll probably be like the game won't function properly at launch, but there will be some sort of like paid DLC that will make it work better or something.
Yeah, it's like it was already on the disc too.
Yeah, something like that definitely.
Like we intentionally broke it or something. I really feel bad for Monolith because like that first one, what was the first one called?
Shadow of Mordor.
Shadow of Mordor, right? Shadow of War is just a bad name, but that's besides the point. Yeah, Shadow of Mordor. It like came out of left field, or I feel like it came out of left field. Like no one was expecting it to be good, and then it was like everyone's like, "Holy shit, this game's awesome!" Like holy shit, Monolith, you did a real good job. And then fucking Warner Brothers wrapped around Monolith like a parasite, and just turned this into a fucking shit show of bad media. You know, like.
Yep.
So I feel bad for them that they had this like rising star, and I don't know, the game still might be good when it comes out, but there's just been so much controversy all around it, which I'm sure Monolith doesn't like, you know.
Well, what's interesting, I was watching a Jim Sterling video, I want to say earlier this week or maybe last week, that was about, how do you pronounce it? Setsuna or Sensuna's Sacrifice?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, it's the Ninja Theory game.
Yeah.
That looks and plays pretty much like a AAA game, looks very polished and really nice, but there is no publisher involved in that game. Ninja Theory did everything on their own.
Yeah.
And I look at that game and I think one of the games I think of is Shadow of Mordor because of sort of the kind of the scale and the kind of interesting mechanics. And I just feel like, man, if only Monolith had just stayed on their own and not gotten in bed with Warner Brothers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it came from they're like, fuck yeah, like...
Yeah, we're going to get
our chance.
We're going to get money to produce this thing.
Yeah, we can expand the scope and the team and all that shit, and yeah. Oops. Big old oops there.
So, moving over to Valve.
More oops.
So we reported on how Steam Greenlight was horrible multiple times. And then we reported on how Valve was getting rid of Steam Greenlight in preference to Steam Direct, their new system, which was going to solve everything, or at least make things better. And it was not going to have the rampant abuse of Steam Greenlight. And it's been the summer. The summer was, I think, because I think in the spring is when that happened.
Yeah, it's around them.
And we have starting to get more and more evidence that things are just as bad, if not worse, than they ever were for Steam.
At least with this one company, yeah.
Definitely with this company. Well, I think it's interesting because this company proves that people can easily, or maybe not easily, but they can still abuse the system in the same ways that they were before.
Yes.
And it's interesting, Valve really wanted to put in place all of these algorithms to safeguard against these bad games just showing up in everyone's feeds. And in that respect, Direct has worked because a lot of these games don't show up in people's feeds, but it doesn't mean they're not still out there clogging up Steam's marketplace. So
backing up the tubes.
Yes, backing up the internet tubes. There's only so much room in those tubes. All right.
There's not a lot of you only got some tubes.
So there was a company called Zonetron. Or it was actually like 5 companies, but there's a lot of evidence that they were all run by the same like 3 people. So the main one was Zonetron. And they decided, or also another big one is Silicon Echo. I think those are the 2 main ones, but I feel like most of them were under Zonetron Productions sort of umbrella. Anyway, these were companies that were probably just run by 3 people that made Unity asset flip games. So they would go onto Unity, they would buy assets on there and mostly pre-made games, and then they would slice the games up like by level in most cases, and then sell each level individually on Steam's marketplace. So they had at one point between these several different companies that were all basically run by the same people. They had something like 200 different games up,
Yes.
which
By, which
apparently
go
it
by the
counted.
great titles like Clicky, Grim Banana, and Shapes.
Yes, Shapes. Who can forget Shapes?
All capitalized.
So this apparently accounted for 10% of all of the games that were released on Steam in August, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they just released a massive amount of games all at once.
Yep.
And the reason why they were doing this, and there's a really great video in this Polygon article from this dude named Sid Alpha. It's like a 16-minute video, but he goes through how this whole thing works. And I'm going to try and paraphrase a little bit of it because it is fairly complicated. But the idea is that they make all these games, they put them up, and then they get a bunch of bots. And then they have the bots give out a bunch of free Steam keys, and also they actually have the bots buy the games and run them and unlock achievements in the games, which unlocks Steam trading cards, which they then sell for, a pittance on the Steam market. Or I think it's the cards get converted into gems and then those get sold.
Yeah.
Now, this is the kind of thing where you're dealing with I don't know, like a couple of cents at a time. But
About
if you
25
have
cents.
Yeah, but if you have a bot farm of hundreds or thousands of bots doing this all the time 24/7, you're potentially making like tens of thousands of dollars off of these games. It's crazy.
So stupid. It's so dumb.
So
that's like when I tried to wrap my head around how the housing market crashed in 2008. And it's just like, well, we put these loans in this portfolio and did this crazy shit. It's like, oh my god, people fucking are such conniving assholes sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's just shifting money around in order to try to grow it and make more money, even though there isn't actually any basis for any of this money really being there. It's just abusing a system.
Yeah.
And at least with the stock market, there are some sort of laws.
Yeah. Well,
sort of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
For the most. Yeah.
A little bit. Maybe not so much in the U.S., maybe more in other countries. But
yes. Unless you're a tax haven.
On the Steam marketplace, there are no laws.
There are no laws, but Gabe's law.
No laws, but Gabe's law. And again, like what Valve thought they could do was they thought, oh, well, these abuses are all prevalent on Greenlight, so what we can do is we can put in deterrence with the algorithms, meaning that regular buyers, regular customers won't be buying these games, at least not in large numbers. So it'll be difficult for them to gain a foothold and gain money that way. And they have the thing with there's a payment you need to put down, $100 fee for every individual title, I believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
To put
and they
these
worked
games
around
in.
that.
And they were able to work around that because when they would push through multiple games, they would push through, like when they take a game and chop it into levels and then sell all the levels individually, they would be selling multiple games under one Steam Direct application, so they only had to pay $100 for like a batch of 6 or 10 games or something.
That's so fucking crazy.
And I guess there was also a thing where to get Steam trading cards, you need to sell at least 1,000 copies of your game for it to qualify for that. Which seems like it would be a deterrent until you look at how many people are on Steam buying games on a regular basis.
Oh, yeah.
And you realize, that's such a small percentage. It's like a fraction of a percent of the audience that, as this company proves, it's really, really easy to just get that to happen anyway.
Yeah, and I wonder, besides the bots, who really are buying these games? I don't know. Who could it be?
I assume it is people who are buying them so that they can get the trading cards, and
That's
because
true.
they don't actually care about the game, they just want the trading cards so that they can sell them or trade them or whatever and get other trading cards.
Because a similar problem exists, although there is no monetary kind of out game in it. But a similar situation exists with PlayStation trophies. There are people that just want to trophy farm and get a bunch of platinums and stuff. So a bunch of people went on the PlayStation Store and started making these bullshit games called 5-star platinum trophy in 1 hour. Like, that's the name of the game.
Huh.
And it's a complete junk game that you just like let run for an hour, and it just gives you a platinum trophy. And like, it's a similar problem because there are people just making money off of this bullshit, based on the fact that they know people want platinum trophies. The difference is that you can't trade in like trophies for money or anything like that. Whereas trading cards, which, I mean, I don't know anyone. I know a lot of people on Steam, and I don't know anyone that does the trading card thing.
No, I mean, the only thing, I'll be playing a game and then it'll be like, oh, you unlocked an achievement, and I'll be like, oh, cool, and then afterward I'll shut the game down and I'll look on Steam and it's like, you have new items in your inventory, you have these 3 random cards, and I'll be like, oh, okay, and at some point it'll build up that it'll be like, you have 30 cards in your thing. And I'll be like, oh, is there a button I can click to put them on the community store? Sure, I'll do that. And then I'll just click that for all of them and put them on sale for like 5 cents or whatever. And I will then
forget about it.
Yeah, and I forget about it. And then a couple days later, it'll be like, you have 30 cents. And I just say, okay, cool. Next time there's a Steam sale, my game will be even cheaper than it already was.
By 30 cents.
By 30 cents. Which is a nice little thing, and I assume they're supposed to be used, but that's not how people use them.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know anyone that gets into that stuff. It's crazy to me. Yeah, and I hate achievements too, by the way. I just set that shit. I'm like, don't tell me when I get an achievement. I don't care, and it just takes me out of the game. But yeah, I mean, good on Steam though for recognizing this problem, even if it is a little late, and squashing it.
I think the trouble about this is that it underscores that like this was probably the biggest company doing it.
Yeah,
because there were so many titles at one time. But if Zenitron had just said, we'll release 5 of these junk titles in August, and 5 of them in September, and 5 of them in October, I seriously doubt Steam would have noticed them. And I think that there's a good chance that there are other companies that are doing that.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I mean, it demonstrates how this was a huge problem with Greenlight, because with Greenlight there wasn't the $100 payment fee thing, and I don't know if there was the 1,000 sales before you get trading cards or not. That also might have not been involved in Greenlight. But
Greenlight seemed really open to anything.
Yeah, but Greenlight had this kind of abuse was rampant in it.
Yep.
And we really were hoping that Direct would have solved some of these problems, but it looks like their measures have had zero effect.
Yeah. It's a tight balance, I think, for Valve, because I can understand their want to have a very community-focused marketplace out there, where like pretty much anyone can make a game and put it out there. And so it's like, personally, I think that Steam and Sony's online store, all the online stores for games should be like more tightly curated. I don't think that anybody should be allowed to put games up there. I think it should be like, it's like, no, we're only putting quality titles up here, and we have a team that curates all of them, you know? Like that's how you get the App Store eventually. It's just an absolute garbage pile, like, because people were just allowed to put whatever the fuck they want, and now there's like nothing good on there. That's an overstatement. There are some useful apps, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's just no one expects to pay anything for anything on the App Store, and it's just all garbage. And it's like, I think that Steam walks a fine line with becoming a garbage pile.
Yeah.
Yet still keeping a strong community focus on creators. And yeah, I'm sure that there are still a lot of people that are abusing this kind of thing. Hopefully they can continue to stamp down on it. I mean, Valve's usually pretty good about this stuff with Steam, in terms of like trying to stay on top of this stuff.
Right
they have
now,
enough money.
Yeah, they certainly have enough money. Right now, the biggest thing from critics is just that Valve needs to curate more, like you were saying. And it seemed like Steam Direct was Valve saying, okay, Greenlight we tried to put it in the hands of community, so it didn't work. So instead, people are telling us that we should curate it personally, but we're not going to do that because that would be too much work. So instead, we're going to make an algorithm to do it for us. And
algorithms never work out with this kind of thing.
Yes, so then that didn't work. So now I think that if this keeps cropping up and Valve keeps getting flack for this, I think eventually they're going to say, fine, we'll curate it ourselves, because that's really what they need to do.
Right.
So
that's essentially what they did before.
It is what they did before. And people had criticisms of that as well, which was that it was very difficult to get on the Steam marketplace. But I think that, I don't know. I mean, I think it might be better. There was just so much less abuse then. I think it's probably worth going back to that era.
Yeah.
Because even though it wasn't perfect, it seems like it's better than it is now.
Yeah. Or maybe like because I was thinking like maybe offer the end user the option of two different stores. It's like, do you want the curated store or the fucking free-for-all Wild West store? You know?
Mm-hmm.
But in that case, I honestly don't think that... I would probably say like 80 to 90% of all Steam users don't encounter this shit or care about it at all, you know?
No.
Like, they go onto Steam and they're like, oh, PUBG, all right, I'm playing. That's all. They don't see any other games. Like, they just... Or Dota or something like that, you know? Or Counter-Strike. I think most users do not see this as a problem. I think it's the power users that are buying a lot of games that are seeing this kind of garbage. And also people that make it entertainment, like Jim Sterling. I don't know if he does it anymore, but back when Steam Greenlight was around, he had an awesome show where he just highlighted the worst of the worst on Steam Greenlight. That was fascinating.
Yeah, and I think that because that show ended when Greenlight ended, but then he reported on this controversy, and I think that he's gonna probably, and I think he's done some other videos, sort of similar videos. He did some stuff with the Sony store things.
Yes,
and I think he's probably gonna bring it back to highlight bad games.
Yeah,
on a regular basis.
On the Sony store, did he highlight Life of Black Tiger?
Yes, he did.
God, that game.
Yeah, that game. So, speaking of Valve back in the day, though, there was a time when Valve made games.
There was a time. I remember it.
I remember it well. And there were some interesting leaks this week about that time.
Yes. So, yeah, like you said, Valve used to make games every once in a while. And apparently they might have also been working on some kind of fantasy co-op game. So recently, the portfolio of a former Valve artist named Drew Wolf, he leaked it, or it got leaked. And there was some interesting stuff in it. One was this apparent fantasy adventure project game thing. He says the project was a fantasy adventure game centered around cooperative combat and driven by story. He did not say if it was Valve or not, which is interesting. So it may have been Valve, maybe it wasn't Valve. Certainly looks kind of like a Valve-y sort of project.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't explicitly say that the character sketches were from Valve, simply referring to it as an internal R&D project. So maybe it was just an idea they had that never got past that point. I mean, that happens a lot in studios. People cycle through hundreds of ideas before they settle on a project to spend 5 years on. So maybe that's what it was. It looks kind of interesting, though. There was... it looks like he was making like groups of 4 characters, like these kind of like fantasy looking characters, and they seem to be all in groups of 4. When he talked about it, he said development of these characters started with the round of loose sketches. The goal was to present as many groups of 4 adventurers as possible in order to establish a diverse cast of archetypal characters. After discussion and feedback, the group was pared down to 10 characters that would become the project's main characters. And who knows what it was. It looks like it was probably like a cooperative MOBA-ish kind of thing, maybe. If I had to take a guess, it would probably be something like that. But it looks kind of the art's interesting. The other thing that he was in his portfolio that was interesting was a bunch of concept art for female Team Fortress 2 characters. And they are the female versions of the characters we already had. And it's actually interesting when I saw this, I never realized that there were no female characters in that game. I guess I never thought about it. And then I'm like, yeah, there aren't any, are there?
Nope.
And the concepts are awesome. I just think they look fucking really, really
look
cool.
So good.
Yeah, like I'd like these as like posters or something. Like these are super cool looking. And he does a couple different versions of like all the different classes. So we got like the engineer, the scout, the demo, and yeah, they just look fucking great. And he said that these were an internal pitch project aimed to bring female characters to the cast of Team Fortress 2. Who knows how recent that was? Who knows if that's something they're going to do or if they're thought about doing and they're not going to do. But I thought it was interesting, anyways. If that is something that they were going to do or are going to do, because it's, might bring some people back to Team Fortress 2, might peel away the ever hungry masses from like Overwatch and put some people back in the TF2 camp. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It seemed interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought all this art just looked fantastic. Like really, really, really good. The fantasy stuff especially made me think like, man, I want to play that game. The game looks like it has amazing art direction. There was a bunch of environments that he had for it too, or somewhere down here. Yeah,
it's down by the bottom. He said that once the characters were settled, he drew quote unquote mood sketches to give a sense of characters and the world, which helped convey the direction quickly and facilitate creative discussions for each character.
Man, I hope this guy's getting a whole lot of work as an artist because his art's like freaking amazing.
It's super, super good. Super, super good.
But yeah, that was cool. That was a fun little thing, and I don't know, maybe if Valve ever wanted to make a game again it could. It's definitely got the art. It's got some cool ideas floating around.
Yeah. And I think it is interesting because they mentioned it in this article that it seems that the only news we ever get about new Valve games is through leaks nowadays, and that because like just recently, I don't know if it was last week when we didn't do a show, but I don't remember if we talked about it, but the guy Mark Laidlaw, I think his name was, who was the writer for Half-Life 2, the main writer for I think Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, released basically a quote-unquote fan fiction version of what Half-Life Episode 3 would have been. Like, it's the story of that game, except he like changed all the names, like obviously changed all the names.
Yeah. No, that was actually, wasn't that a while ago? Wasn't that like a month ago or something? But I do remember seeing the story. I don't think we talked about it.
No, yeah. But yeah, so like there was that, and now this, and it seems like at some point Valve was thinking about making other games besides Dota, but not anymore.
No, so. They're just. I mean, they've just been like, oh man, our marketplace just makes us so much money. Why bother doing anything else?
Right, and I can't really blame them. I mean, like Dota and CS:GO makes just an asinine amount of money. Why would you want? Making games is hard. Why would you fucking do that? You know?
So let's turn to
Ubisoft. This is a bit of a long one, but it's one I want to kind of go down the rabbit hole on because I find it incredibly interesting.
Well, it's a little bit of an update on something that's been going on for a while that we've certainly reported on in the past. With Vivendi is trying to buy out a majority stock in Ubisoft, so that
it's trying to do kind of a hostile takeover. And I just kind of wanted to read a little bit of this by Alexander Bokensom Bon Granier.
Oh yeah, great.
It's a hell of a name. So Ubisoft Entertainment SA, the French video game company that racked up the 5th best performance among stock 600 members this year, has a plan to keep revenues and profit growing if it can maintain its independence from French media giant Vivendi SA. Excuse me. The industry will expand at a rate of 15% to 20% over the next several years, Ubisoft Chief Executive Officer Yves Guillemot said in an interview ahead of the company's annual meeting on Friday. To capture its share, the French video game company plans to accelerate a push into new technology such as cloud-based gaming and expands in promising Asian markets. Guillemot, 57, squirmed out of Bolloré's grip before last year's AGM by persuading shareholders that Ubisoft was more valuable on its own. And this is the interesting part, I think, he delivered with the stock up 70% in 12 months and the annual sales projected to rise 18%. But with Vivendi still on the prowl and poised to gain added voting strength in November, investor support is even more crucial now. Guillemot argues that ties to Vivendi would snuff out opportunities, not increase them. A video game company cannot grow within a media conglomerate, Guimont said, citing the Walt Disney Company's failed expansion. In our industry, independence is needed to take risks, to be innovative. That is not compatible with Vivendi's way of operating. And it goes on, such as this. But I think that the most interesting thing is that Ubisoft's doing really fucking well. And I think it's like pretty damn apparent, obviously, if their stocks are up 70%. Because we've talked about this before, how in the top selling games of the year, over and over again, what do we see? We see Rainbow Six Siege, and we see Ghost Recon Wildlands, and For Honor. These games that no one in our circles talk about ever, but apparently are doing fucking amazing. Yeah. And recently, obviously, the crazy but apparently really fun Mario and fucking the Mario and Rabbids game, which I can never remember the full name of. What is it? Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
You mean no? I think it was called XCOM.
It was called XCOM Switch. And Mario have a baby. And apparently it just like does super well. And obviously with that game, because it's got, I mean, the fact that they secured a tie, like they got to make a Mario game, like that's obviously shows that they have a ton of pull. So I just think that, at least personally, when I used to think of Ubisoft as this kind of third string company, they're always the ones with the longest, most boring, most awkward fucking E3 conferences ever. And it's amazing to me that they are, like, from the outside, I always just thought, I'm like, oh yeah, they do like Assassin's Creed and whatever and other things, you know, and none of those other things do well. But apparently they do incredibly well, enough so that they can actually push back the attempted hostile takeover of their entire company by a media conglomerate, which I think is pretty fucking fascinating.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to the guy running the show, whose name I can't pronounce, and I'm not going to
Yves Guillemot.
Nope. I give a lot of credit to him because he has been fighting for a while now to keep hold of his company, because it's a company it's like in the family. So he founded it with his family, and they all are the people who control it. And he really doesn't want to lose it, I think, for that personal reason, which is totally understandable. But man, is he fighting tooth and nail. He's just giving it his all. And it's, you know, he's succeeding a little bit. And it's a great underdog story of somebody, of the little guy trying to take on this giant conglomerate.
Yeah. And he is a little guy. He's a short man.
He's a short man.
He's a very
bring
short,
that into this.
He's a very short French man. But no, he's battling. It's, you know, he's giving it his all, and I respect him because that, you know, I think, like, I always think of, when I think of Ubisoft, I always think that they're a little off. They're a little weird, you know, they make weird choices, and they make kind of some weird games sometimes. But it's honestly, I really do think that when he says that, it's like, no, like, we want to stay independent because that's the only way you can innovate. That's the only way that you can do interesting things. I believe him. Like, I believe he actually thinks that, you know? And I think that's cool. I think that the one thing that I think they have above, like, EA and Activision and, I don't know, 2K and shit like that, is that they seem to have a bit of soul.
Yeah.
Although, you know, their games I don't play a lot of their games and I don't even like a lot of them, but at least they seem to have some soul and some heart, you know, occasionally. Like, they want to do interesting and original ideas, even though they are a big publisher, you know.
Well, I think what's also important to note is he is using his own and his family's personal wealth to buy up all these stocks as fast as he can. So if he loses to Vivendi, that's going to be extra sad.
Yeah, it really will be.
And but hopefully he'll make it. This is a very encouraging story. There was stuff about cloud-based things and AI that I did not look into, but I don't know if you want to mention that. Yeah,
he basically is just saying that it says Guillemot, who founded Ubisoft in '86, actually a couple years before I was born, expects future growth will come from further changes in technology such as cloud gaming, artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual reality, and augmented reality. Some of these features will also improve the feedback on how people play, showing Ubisoft developers new ways to customize and adapt their products. To what degree that is happening, I don't actually know. I mean, that sounds to me like that sounds like kind of a company-wide statement where it's just like, yeah, we're looking into a lot of shit. You know, like, To what degree will actually be used, who knows? I honestly think cloud gaming is something that was tried and failed, and we just don't have the worldwide connectivity for it yet. I think Sony bet big on that with Gaikai back in the day, and that didn't really. They came out with PlayStation Now, and that didn't. I think it's interesting, but it's certainly. I don't think it's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, we're definitely going to get to a point where technology has caught up, and then we can do that, and it'll be great and convenient. But yeah, I think that we're just not there yet. I think the game industry, interestingly enough, and I guess I want to give it credit for this, but they seem like they're always pushing technology forward in some interesting ways, specifically with virtual reality. Like, virtual reality is not feasible. It when it came out, it wasn't feasible, and it's not feasible now, and because it's too expensive and people are not ready for it, and it's too big and it's too clunky and all this different stuff. But it's one of those things that eventually it'll probably be great. It's just they just got in a little too early on that.
But man, video gaming and porn are the two things that have always pushed video technology. And it continues to be that way. Video games are always ahead of the curve with this shit, and they're always trying out new shit because they know people will be more receptive to it if there's a good game behind it. With virtual reality, like you said, I think it's still a little too early. Jump the gun a bit. I will. The guy I was watching an interview with the guy that did Oddworld. I can never remember his name. Do you know the guy I'm talking about?
No.
All right. Well, the guy that did Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, and stuff. He's a really fascinating guy. He's kind of like an old hippie, but he has a lot of interesting insights. And like he was like virtual reality, and he wears glasses. He's like, virtual reality will become a worldwide thing when this is virtual reality. He held up his glasses. He's like, when I can put virtual reality on like this, and it's not connected to anything, that's when it will become completely mainstream. He's like, as long as you have to strap something big to your head and plug into a box somewhere, it's not going to be mainstream. But as soon as you can get that stuff wireless and you can get it lightweight and it's as easy to and accessible as glasses, then it'll be everywhere.
Totally.
And be used for way more things than gaming.
Oh, yeah. So we're running a little low on time, but I want to try and jump through some of these last couple stories. One of them involves Atlas. We talked about Atlas recently in terms of Persona 5 coming out, and the Atlas put this ridiculous embargo on streaming past a certain point in the game when it first came out because they didn't want the game to be spoiled for people. I think that they say they didn't want to be spoiled, but I think the real reason was that they thought, Persona 5 is such a story-driven game, and the narrative is really what's important to it. If people can stream the whole narrative as the week the game comes out, and they've already beaten it, then someone can just go watch the stream, and then they won't buy the game.
Right.
And this is very...
Which is a bit of a... a stretch, I think.
It's a stretch, and it's backwards thinking, but I'm pretty sure that Atlas thought, or maybe Atlas's parent company thought, that this is going to hurt our sales, so we need to stop people from doing this. But at the end of the day, they couldn't actually stop people. Like, there was no legal precedent in place for them to do so. So a lot of people did it anyway, and Atlas kind of reprimanded people, but nothing came of it. And a similar situation has happened just this past week. So we learned on September 26th that there was an emulator that emulated PlayStation 3, I believe. Yes. The RPCS3 emulator emulates PlayStation 3, and they have a list of titles that work on their emulator on their website. One of those titles is Persona 5.
Which I didn't even know Persona 5 was coming out for PS3. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was one of the things when I started reading this. I'm like, oh, it's a PS4 emulator? Oh, no, it's a PS3 emulator. Because I was also like, wait, PS4? There are emulators for that already? Yeah. Jeez.
No, that's impressive.
But, oh man, if you string together enough PS3 emulators, you can make a supercomputer.
You could. all those cell processors.
Yes. So, this RPC S3.
It's super hard to say.
It is really hard to say. They have a Patreon, and their idea is they say, okay, we make this emulator. It's legal for us to make the emulator. we're not going to give you access to any of the games, but we would encourage you to use your real copies of the games that you bought and to play them on your PCs using this emulator.
Which has been the mantra of all emulators since the dawn of time.
Yes, totally. And it is completely legal.
Yep.
So they had on their Patreon, they were accepting money, and Atlas saw this and said, no, we can't let that happen because we can't let people pirate Persona 5. I mean, again, that is not what they said. What they said was, oh, no, we don't want to, we want people's experience with Persona 5 to be on one of the systems it was designed for, not on an emulator. Then if it doesn't run well on the emulator, people will think that Persona 5 doesn't run well.
Right, that's such garbage.
It's total BS, and everyone saw through it. They were just worried that people were going to have they would pirate Persona 5 and have an emulator to play it on.
Right. And honestly, like maybe it's a translation problem or something. But if that was their gripe, then they should have just said that. Be like, we don't want people to pirate it because it's a game we made. We need to make money. Like, what's wrong with saying that? It's a completely logical thing to say.
Totally. And so instead, they didn't contact the makers of the emulator. Instead, they went straight to Patreon and said, "Hey, Patreon, you need to take this down because it's not legal for them to pirate our game effectively." And Patreon looked at it, and they said, hey, but they're not pirating your game. They're making an emulator, and maybe people will pirate your game and play it on the emulator, but that has nothing to do with these people.
So, and it has nothing to do with Patreon.
And it has nothing to do with Patreon. So Patreon said, well, we're not going to just shut down this Patreon account because of your weird roundabout logic, Atlas. So how about no, you can go away now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll give Patreon a lot of credit for not caving to a large company. Although Atlas is not a giant company, I think this probably would have gone down differently if Sony had been the ones involved.
Maybe.
Although
Patreon's
again,
pretty staunch. They're they protect their users to a pretty alarming degree.
Yeah.
Like there was recently a crazy alt-right lady who was doing some like actually illegal shit, and she had a Patreon, and like the founder of Patreon made like a really long video. He was like, we're taking down our Patreon, and here's exactly why. Like, just so we don't cause any controversy. He's like, it has nothing to do with politics. It violates our terms of service. Like that's why we're taking it down. But they usually let shit fly as a rule.
So this was I was really happy to read this story because it good for Patreon for standing up for their people, and I'm glad. It seems like whenever we see a story about, especially dealing with emulation, but dealing with anything where there's any kind of fan-made video game stuff, and then a video game company comes in and says, no, you can't do that. We're going to shut you down. What almost always happens is they're shut down, and that's the end of it. So I was just so happy that the emulators got to keep going. They're fine. The only compromise that they made, and they made it willingly, I don't even think they were necessarily asked to do this, but they thought, oh, we'll suggest doing this because it'll be a good compromise. Maybe it'll make Atlas happy, is they removed all mention of Persona 5 from their Patreon page and from their website. So
yeah, that's just good. Practice.
It's still implied pretty heavily that you can play Persona 5, the PS3 version of Persona 5, on this emulator, but they're not advertising it.
Right.
And
that's smart on their part, definitely. And I just think, from Atlas's point, this is just more misguided mishandling of something,
and
they do it often.
I'm still not sure how much of this is Atlas's parent company, which I totally forget the name of. It might be Capcom or somebody.
That sounds correct, actually.
But I'm not sure how much of this is Atlas and how much of it is their parent company, like asking them to do this. Because I want to give Atlas the benefit of the doubt because they do such a good job with their games. But I don't know. This has been just the fact that this is the second incident in recent history. I'm beginning to think like, oh, Atlas are little douchey when it comes to this stuff.
Oh no, actually Sega owns Atlas
now.
It's
Sega. All right.
I think that it's, I always point back to CD Projekt Red or Projekt Red and how they handle their shit. It's like they started as a pirating company like during like the 80s, like during like the Cold War, when they couldn't get any media in Poland, and like so their attitudes towards that shit is super cool. But they're like, people are going to pirate our game. We understand that. It's like, we're not going to stop them at all. We consider it. We consider that if we let people pirate our games, it's just they're more likely to buy the game afterwards, you know. And it's like, here's a ton of shit. Here's a ton of reasons why you should buy the game. We give you a bunch of free shit, tons of free shit, you know. And it's all DRM free, you know. And I think that you can just garner so much better word of mouth, so much better fan appreciation if you just handle this stuff with kind of a laissez-faire attitude instead of trying to shut it down with dumb reasons like, well, it'll look wrong on a PC or something, you know.
Definitely. And on top of that, there haven't been a lot of studies into it, but there have been some studies into media piracy recently and over the past, probably over the past decade. But most of them have indicated that it really doesn't actually hurt sales because
no, it doesn't.
A lot of these people who are pirating were never going to buy it in the first place.
Right, that's the thing, because there's two. I really think that there's two types of people. There's people that are never going to buy it in the first place, or people that want to try it out, but they don't want to. They want to try it out. They want a demo, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I'll be completely honest. I do that all the time. I'll pirate a game, and if I like it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play this game for 60 hours. I'm going to go buy it, you know, because I know it's worth my time. Yeah, so I mean, hell, the name of the show is Don't Copy That Floppy. You wouldn't pirate a car, would you, Lex?
You wouldn't download a bear.
You wouldn't download a bus.
Oh, I always thought, oh, man, those commercials were so funny. Mm-hmm. Because, like, you wouldn't download a car. And I'm like, or it was specifically like, you wouldn't steal a car. And I'm like, well, if I thought I could get away with it in the same way that I can get away with pirating media, yeah, I would.
I would be stealing all the cars.
In a heartbeat, I would do that.
With a racetrack full of cars.
Yes. So let's, very long time. We got 5 minutes left. Let's talk really quickly about PUBG and then a trailer that came out this week.
Yeah. PUBG, it's not too much to talk about other than Bluehole has announced that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is being spun off into its own company named PUBG Corp. Ooh. A Bluehole subsidiary. And this is, quote-unquote, focused entirely on the development and global business opportunities for the Battle Royale shooter. Basically, what's happening is a bunch of people from Bluehole and other companies that I have never heard of are being pulled out and put into executive positions for now this new PUBG Corp. And the company is, quote-unquote, accelerating overall business development and managing global operations. The new structure allows us to be nimble as we look forward to the expansion of strategic business opportunities that include the game's potential in the esports sector and the growth of PUBG as a global IP franchise, said a guy. And said one of the people that's going to be heading up the company. And interestingly enough, PUBG recently broke the record for concurrent users on Steam. It toppled Dota. Mm-hmm. So PUBG now has the record for most concurrent users. At one point, it actually accounted for, I think, like 30% of all people on Steam were playing PUBG at one time.
Man, that is a hot new game, man.
It is.
Gosh.
And I think this just shows that it's going to it's not stopping anytime soon. This is growing forever and ever. We'll just continue to cover the madness. I also wanted to say that I tried Fortnite's free PUBG mode that they put out, and that is the most blatant fucking ripoff I've ever played in my life. It played fine. It played fun. But it's like literally the same game.
Yep.
Like it's amazing. Uh-huh. How much of a fucking, like, it's the closest thing I've ever seen. It's just like, ooh, a new popular genre. We got 2 weeks. Put out a fucking clone. Like, it's amazing. I'd like to talk about Fortnite at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, PUBG Corp. So now I like what they say is that now people are going to have to write PUBG developer PUBG. It's just going to be fun.
All right. So big news happened this week.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a game called Red Dead Redemption?
Never have.
Okay. I know it's a little known thing. It's by this company that like almost no one's heard of called like Rockstar. I don't know.
Are they like an indie startup?
Yeah, no, they're not that big. They don't make very much money, so they're really an art house type developer. I think Tim Schafer's worked with them a couple times.
Probably been on had their games on the Fig, whatever that new thing.
No, but okay, so Red Dead Redemption, big deal game, came out, made by Rockstar. It was a Western. It was awesome. They have talked about how they're making Red Dead Redemption 2, and this week, a couple days ago, we got a trailer for Red Dead Redemption 2, and man, it was good. Oh my god, it was such a good trailer.
It's fucking gorgeous.
So this trailer is going to be about Arthur Morgan and the Vanderlinde. Am I pronouncing that right? I think I am.
Yep.
Gang.
That was the guy. That was the bad guy from the first one.
So this is supposed to be a prequel, I believe.
That's what it's pointing to, because the guy, Vanderlinde was the guy that you kill at the end of the first one. Spoilers, that game's old enough, statute of limitations, whatever, go fuck yourself. And they show him in this trailer as still alive and obviously still in a lot of power. So yeah.
And the trailer, I mean, I obviously can't play it for you because Rockstar will come down on our YouTube video like a ton of bricks.
Yes.
But
Sam Hauser will shoot you through the window.
Yes. There's a lot of really, maybe I'll skip around for like screenshot purposes. But there is a lot of great, I mean, the graphics, it looks gorgeous. But there's really good narrative going on in this. Like and I expect that from a Rockstar game at this point. They're gonna have great narrative in their games. But this is really like man, this trailer makes it look like this game is a fantastic story, really great dialogue, really interesting characters, very cinematic shots for cutscenes and stuff like that. Super, super excited to maybe even just watch this. Like, I mean, I want to play it, but I'd be excited to just watch it. It looks really well put together.
It looks like more Red Dead 2, or Red Dead 1, which is fucking awesome because that game's amazing. A couple interesting things. Do you think that this will be a multi-character kind of game like Grand Theft Auto 5?
I mean, it doesn't look that way from this trailer. It pretty much seems like it's about Arthur Morgan.
Although the first Grand Theft Auto 5 trailer only showed Michael.
Well, that's true.
Was the only person.
Yeah. So maybe that would be interesting if they were going to play with that concept more. I would certainly be into that because it worked out so well for them in the past. But I mean, hey, I'm happy that it's coming out. I'm happy that it looks good. Rockstar, they know what they're doing. I hope it gets a PC release. It probably won't.
Oh, God. I'm going to have to buy a fucking PlayStation for this goddamn game.
Yep. That's what's going to happen. Got to get that pancake.
I know.
So, other than it's awesome, there isn't really a whole lot to say about it. So.
Spring 18.
Oh, yeah. Spring 2018. They didn't announce an official date, but I mean, spring 2018 gives us a pretty good window. Yeah. So, that's cool. Hey, I'm happy.
Not too long.
Now, closing out the show, we're going to talk about games that came out today or just came out this past week, and games that are about to come out. Now, we didn't get to do a show last week, so there are a couple of games that came out then that we might want to point to. Total War Warhammer 2 came out. What else?
Heard people like that.
Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 came out for the Switch.
Yeah. SteamWorld Dig 2. Some people really like that SteamWorld Dig.
Pokken Tournament DX. Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that game looks so stupid.
Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony.
Oh. All right. Oh, man, Pinball FX3. Sweet.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Excellent.
I like Pinball. Pinball FX is okay. There's another, I can't remember the name of it. There's a better pinball game, though.
But today we had Cuphead came out.
Cuphead.
Also FIFA 18, which came out for like everything. Came out for the PS3, PS4, 360. Wait, it came out for the 360? I didn't even think things were still coming out for the 360.
Oh, dude, fucking FIFA games have always been like that. Fucking, they come out for it was like 3 years ago. One of them was still coming out for like PlayStation 2.
This is madness, but it's coming out for everything. Yeah. It's coming out for the Switch. Sweet. Yeah.
On a custom game engine, which was a whole controversy.
Oh yeah, but they still released it on time, so I guess sure. I wonder how many microtransactions are in FIFA 18.
Probably a ton.
Probably a ton. As we mentioned at the start of the show, big release today: Star Fox 2 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
No one's ever played it ever.
Nope, it's certainly not been circulating as a ROM for decades on the internet.
Yes.
And coming up,
Spoilers, it's actually not very good,
Yeah,
by
no,
the
it's
way.
not very good at all. There's a reason that game didn't get released.
Yeah.
The technology wasn't quite there yet. But don't worry,
No.
they got the technology for the N64 and released
Yeah.
the actual version of that game as Star Fox 64. So just go
Right.
play that.
The good one.
The good one. So on the 3rd, we have Battle Chasers Night War.
Sure.
Which actually looks really cool. I was
Never heard of that.
I had randomly I've been looking through Switch titles, like upcoming Switch titles, and I had found that in terms of its graphic style, it looks almost identical to Diablo 3. It doesn't have the same concept design as Diablo 3, like the characters are clearly like drawn by a different person, but it still graphically looks very, very similar. And apparently it runs a lot like that until you actually get into combat, and then it just plays like a JRPG. So
Interesting.
it's just characters on either sides of the screen, and they run at each other and do turn-based combat. But it's coming out for the Switch.
It has a terrible name. That name sucks.
It does have a terrible name. Apparently, it's based off like a '90s comic book, which makes the name make way more sense.
That does, yeah.
But yeah, also we have Forza Motorsport 7 on the 3rd. And what else is coming out?
Axiom Verge for the Nintendo Switch. Axiom Verge is a fantastic game.
Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is coming to the PS4 and the Xbone.
People like them Dragon's Dogma games.
Game's good. Real good.
We got Cyber Dimension Neptunia 4 Goddesses Online.
Well, that's on the 10th. Hold on.
I know. I just wanted to say Cyber Dimension Neptunia.
You'll have plenty of time to say it next week. Don't worry.
I'm sure. Also, I wanted to say that Cuphead, I haven't played it yet. I'm still interested in playing it just because the animation looks amazing. But the reviews are right about where I thought it would be, which is not super high. It's like in the 6 to 8 range for most places.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like such a niche game.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I think I've talked about it in the past, but there's certain moves that companies like Sony make to sort of boost up their indie titles that are a little weird, but we don't have time to talk about that.
We don't. Oh, quick shout out. Divinity Original Sin 2. Been playing a little bit of that thing. It's fucking amazing. If you're into old school RPGs, if you're into old school RPGs and D&D and shit, and you got a PC, get that fucking game because it's amazing.
I wish my PC could run it. If only.
If only.
So we're out of time. It's over. The show's over.
We're done.
This has been Don't Copy That Floppy, a weekly video game news podcast hosted by Lex and Chris, or Booge, if that's what you want.
Booge.
That's
Chris.
how you want to live your life.
It's how I've been living my life since like the 2nd grade.
You can find us on all sorts of social media, including Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, iTunes, YouTube, all the places, by searching either Don't Copy That Floppy Podcast or DCTF Podcast. That one's our Twitter handle, so check us out there. If you want to support the show, you can go and leave us an iTunes rating or review. We'd super appreciate that. Or if you want to support the show and you have a whole lot of money, you can give us money via our Patreon, and then you get access to bonus content, which is cool.
Ooh.
But that's about it. So until
are we gonna Lex? I'm sorry, but when are we gonna add microtransactions to this podcast?
This podcast needs more DLC.
We need VC.
We need to create our own currency called floppy coins.
Floppy doppies.
And we need to charge everyone for everything all the time. And we need loot boxes.
We need some loot boxes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah. So until next time, Chris, what do people have to remember?
Well, Lex, you wouldn't download a podcast, would you? Don't copy that floppy.